Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sabre Education Experience. And today we've got the amazing, majestic Mr. Luke Dyer, or you'll know more as Luke, who's going to be doing a great shag haircut for you, working with today in a couple of variations. So, guys, enjoy. Lots of questions. I'm going to pass over to Luke in a moment, but just let you know, behind the camera today we've got Richard Watson, who will be also taking some questions and filming. So, welcome to everybody. Look forward to a great little session, Luke.
Thanks, Duncan.
Thanks, mate.
All right, so this is called Show Us Your Bones. I suppose it's not just about the shape, but it's also about working with the bone structure. And traditionally as hairdressers, we're always taught on a woman you should not expose corners of jaw or too much of face because it looks too masculine. I think now we're seeing so much really incredible open-faced, and all that jawline is really beautifully exposed. I think it's really femme, I think it's really gorgeous. So that's the point of this. I have used moisture recovery. Jane has very naturally thick hair, so we wanted to make sure I could get it as soft and pliable as possible. We used the treatment balm rather than the conditioner just to make sure it had heaps of weight. I recommend, particularly with curl, you want to only rinse it out about 80%. Leaving that little bit in there just gives you something to kind of keep those ends really soft as you're working. The only thing that I'll be using in the hair today is the Zero Heat, the one for thick hair. And we're going to use about a year amount, not much more. I think sometimes, much to Joyco's dismay, we all do things where we shouldn't do or the packaging says not. Personally, I really dig this for a cutting motion, particularly when, once again, I'm working with really thick, coarse hair. Working from wet to dry, it really allows me control and to see that texture of the hair come out as it goes. I'm not a big styling person. Anyone who's worked with me or done my coursework, I generally don't use brushes. I've owned the same 5 brushes for 20 years. I replace them with the same brush when they die. I think for me, where I'm at with my hairdressing is more about prep. So using good quality product to then prep the hair and being able to have that duality where you either leave it the hell alone and it does something beautiful and good, or then if you want it to look more dressy, corporate, whatever your thing needs to be at that time, it can do it just by the use of preparing the hair slightly differently. You know, you can blow dry it, you can stretch it out, you can iron it, you can twist blow dry it if you want, but for today, for Jane, I'm just going to basically cut from wet to dry and a little bit of hand styling with possibly a diffuser. Maybe not, we'll see how we go. So Jane hasn't had her hair cut for about 2 years. Last time we cut Jane's hair was a really short pixie. Just some really beautiful, natural hair. It's really nice to work with. And so for today, our sectioning pattern is going to be really simple. I like to work with things simply. 3 days a week, I cut hair like everyone does. So I'm not into 20 million sections and things all pre-sectioned up. I just think you just work with what comes. I think for me, the important part with this particular haircut is where the recession point is. So being able to kind of work with that. Traditionally, we would part on that line, and that then separates what you would refer to as the top and the bottom of the haircut. For today, I'm actually going to go a little bit higher, about half eyebrow, right back in the deep crown.
Nice. And why are you going higher?
Because I really want to control where that corner is. I feel like a lot of times when I see all these modern shags around, they're still very cornery. And like once again, being able to kind of open up that face and have more of a rounded, loose shape, for me just is far more fun. It's just fun. Like, you know, I don't want to do things the same. I think sometimes we all suffer, you know, as our own worst covers band, we just produce the same work. So being able to mess with it and just do different things and kind of skin the cat 1,000 different ways is really important to me. You also see I'm not really using section clips, even though I've got an armful of them. They'll come in handy later on. So this cut, when I first started doing it, I was doing it all with razor. Not every head of hair is appropriate for razor. So with Jane's hair here, I'm actually going to be using scissor most of the time. I will be doing a little bit of razor work towards the end in the front, in the fringe, to kind of just really pull that shape apart. but mostly it's going to be scissor work, and I'll explain that as I go. So first section is done in there, really simple. It's a 45-degree angle, nice big section for starters. This is the most important bit. If you cut a really strong first section, the rest is just tracing.
Is that why you're taking a larger section to create a strength in your first guide?
Yeah, also when you're working with that front hairline there, there's everyone has like lots of different shape. So if it's too fine, you can get little tiny bits in that section where there's not enough hair to really be able to follow. So that's why I like to work it nice and big. The other thing is I'm going to try to do my best whilst filming to kind of, I'm going to work all the way around the head, always keeping my hands in the same position so my palm is always facing me. And then I'm going to try to keep the angle very similar, just so it's all really easy going. So here we go, just going to jump straight in.
Cool. Let's do it. Thanks, Luke.
So traditionally, when you're cutting forward graduation, we've always been taught to scoop it all the way around into the middle, which produces a very heavy kind of Jennifer Aniston 90s kind of forward grad. We all know it. We all had the flog of the death in the 90s. So now what we're going to be doing is, I'm just going to move that round. Comes out at 45, so that way it's going to be like loose and just really easy. All the way out, up at 45. And grab the hair, scissor goes in. I see a lot of people when they talk about texturizing, nibbling off the ends. And then that way, it's not really texturizing when it's only that deep. So we've actually been going for some super deep texturizing today.
Are you closing the scissors as you work down the hair shaft?
I am, but there's two reasons for that. Hang on, before I talk about that, you can see already, I'm trying to create that kind of pushback flick motion. Yes. Whereas if you cut it all in front, that hair wants to really sit in that way. Yeah. Whereas pulling it out at 45 from the head means it's going to want to move outwards. And that deep texturizing again really is going to activate that whole front shape.
Oh, I love it, Lou. You can see it already.
So now pretty much it's going to be a mobile guideline, which means it's all going to move to its new section line. Like I said earlier on, I'm going to be working my way around the head like a clock.
That sounds so satisfying. I don't know if you can hear that on the video, but that sounds good.
I promised my client I'd throw some hair on the floor so she could be satisfied with how much hair I was cutting off today. So you can see, second section, we're already behind the ear. So this is now going to be that point where it connects the front to the back of the hair.
This is a sort of salon-friendly haircut that we're loving because it's not going to take like 2 hours sectioning and blow drying.
I work in 45-minute haircut appointments. Yeah. I work by myself. I have no apprentice. So the whole point for me is to be able to produce work that is repeatable. There's no point doing something wild or too crazy when I actually can't reproduce the work again. So you can see there how much variation in length we have. What I might do is, I might actually turn Jane 180 and you can shoot against the white wall.
Great, thanks.
How about that? As much as I love seeing the background of the salon, we'll just try to keep it simple, guys.
I want to get that cactus too. That is cool.
It's a mate of mine. I wish I could paint. Terrible with colour. So once again, we're now moving down below the occipital bone, which generally, sacred geometry would say, also then falls in with cheekbone. So it allows me to really make sure that I'm maintaining balance. I'm gonna pull that section out, let's get that done. You can see that there's my baseline. I'm gonna leave that for now, and I'm gonna come back, and that's something where I will actually razor it out. keeping that hair together. Once again, nice and deep. So you can see, oh, sorry. The chair actually moved really fast then. You see, that's already starting to kind of come out there. Okay. So now I'm just going to work through a few sections without talking.
Go for it. I'm not sure if it was mentioned earlier, we are filming at Orwell and Watts, which is Luke's salon in Springwood in the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, Australia.
Go nice and high. You can see I'm actually grabbing that hair with my fingers and I'm squishing it together. And that way it allows me to get a really nice slide with my scissor. Quite high on that crown. Once again, because I've gone up over the recession point, I'm going to really make this a nice rounded shape. So that texture falls all the way from the top, all the way to the bottom.
With Jane's natural movement, you can really see the texture come out. If you're working this haircut on someone that had quite straight hair, that don't have the texture that Jane's got, how do you feel about that? Do you change things up?
No. So the reason why we're kind of doing this really kind of deep texturizing technique is it just makes texture. You know, short hair pushes long hair. It's one of the oldest rules with hairdressing. I feel like sometimes we don't get that passed on enough. If the hair was really straight, I'd probably be razoring a lot more. And if I'm razoring, I'd work more in a horizontal pattern. Because I just find with razor work, if you're trying to do it like that and do the same scooping motion in and out of the section, it just doesn't work. Whereas when you're scooping that up, it all travels up and it's kind of the same but different. Maybe I'll get to show you guys that some other time. So now we're kind of getting around to that crown point. I'm almost going to start to pivot out of there. So it crosses over at the back. It does a little bit less towards the crown point. I do this technique all day, every day. Long hair, short hair. Obviously, at a certain length, it becomes quite difficult.
Luke, can I ask, how short would you go with this technique and how would the texture of the hair vary? How short you take it?
Oh, so my partner, at the top of her hair is about 2 inches long. She has no fringe, it's all cut off like a micro kind of section. And the back is not dissimilar to this, it's more disconnected where I almost cut it in so it's like an outgrown Mia Farrow Rosemary's Baby and then with back, but it still has to be frames. But for me, there's got to have, I heard it when I was actually at the Hair Awards where one of the judges was talking a lot about taste. And you know, it's all fine and dandy to do wild things, but if it doesn't have taste, if it doesn't have creative value, it isn't beautiful, then it's just extreme. And for me, at where I'm at, I've kind of played that kind of like, you know, keep it crazy game. And it must be beautiful. It must be appealing to the eye. You know, I think we've all done it as hairdressers when you work in particular areas and, you know, sometimes you end up following someone around, kind of going, and then, you know, stopping them and saying like, where did you get your haircut? Because it's just so beautiful and, you know, this shape, particularly that front angle, I kind of ruined my partner's hair a couple of times trying to get there. And about 2 or 3 doll's hairs that Joyco willfully donated to me, I kind of destroyed trying to work the shape out. And in the end, I reached out to someone in my online community and actually asked them how do they achieve it, this particular hairdresser. He just does it so beautifully. And after I sent him all my drawings and all my recorded haircuts, and I was like, this is what I think, but I don't know. Is there something I'm missing? And then he actually sent me, he didn't know me from bar soap, and he actually set up a live video feed of him doing that haircut next time he was doing it and sent it to me. And and so we now communicate and shoot haircuts backwards and forwards, and it's just,
That's great.
it's gold. I think this online kind of thing is just going to make us all heaps stronger.
Well, you're right. It's about improving the skills of all of us and the ability to access, just like what we're doing today, people from all over the world can access your work and get tips, improve their skills, learn how to use the Joico products, and that's just a benefit for everyone involved, really.
Absolutely. I've had the privilege of hanging out with some older farmers, and they always say that they like to leave the land better than they find it, and I think that is a way of looking at our industry is really important. When my time comes to move away from hairdressing, hang on before I keep rambling. So
Sorry, man.
So now I've got this long front here on Jane. Now you can really see some of that natural texture wanting to pop out here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now going to start to chop this in really quite close from cheekbone all the way down. All right, and this will be done with razor. You can see my angle's still out, it's not in. I'm really pulling that hair out, so I want to keep that kind of, you can see it there, all that pushback that we're getting, so you get that lovely open faceness. And even though Jane has quite thick, coarse, medium coarse hair, when you're doing your razor motion, you keep it short. I'm not scraping, I'm keeping my angle really steep, and I'll do that again, and you can observe that. This hair texture is very dependent on actually how I will razor. It's a really short motion rather than a long scraping from the root, which in this particular head of hair would just, it'd be the Cinderella clause, where it looks really good here, but then tonight at midnight, it all turns into a pumpkin.
And you've already created that texture with your scissor cut originally, haven't you?
Yeah.
With the short and longer bits.
All that irregularity. All that, it's a real key to kind of modern texture. All right, so I'm going to leave that now, and I'm just going to see what happens as that bad boy dries, and we'll play that from there. So now I'm going to come around to the other side. Same thing. Generally speaking, what you do on one side, you must do on the other side. But like I said, I'm going to be working my way around. I'm still going to make my section on this side. There's a few people out there. I watch a lot of education in my own time from all over the place. Sometimes this evening, there's a particular group that comes out of the Ukraine, and 9 times out of 10, they're speaking in Ukrainian, which I don't speak. But that language of hands is just phenomenal, and it really works for me. I'm going to work that way. Is that a good angle for you guys? Great.
Luke, if I can just ask a question from Naomi. Naomi's asked, is it important to be using the right scissors with slicing?
Yes.
Great question.
Yes, it is. What is the right scissor? That is a much harder question. There is micro slit edge on some branded scissor. That will not work. You'll actually grab the hair all the way down. I use a 7.2 inch Mizutani. The reason why I'm not brand loyal per se, but I wanted a very heavy shank, and I wanted all the power to be in the tip. So when I apply that pressure, it just slides all the way through. But that's also where, particularly with this haircut and hair type, leaving that hair 80% rinsed out with that moisture recovery, and also using that zero heat just gives me that extra bit of slip and control, and it's gold. It's really important.
Just on the scissor idea, there is another type of scissor they call a leaf blade, and they have very heavy blades, and they're shaped like a leaf, like in an oval shape.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, I haven't used them, but apparently they are specifically made for slide cutting.
Nice.
You wouldn't be doing any blunt cut precision work with them. There's something to look into as well.
Listen, if there's anyone out there who wants to sling me a pair to have a go with, bring it on. I'll happily use a scissor. I use 2 pairs of scissor. I use this one, and then I've literally got a much smaller pair of very old ones that I've had rebooted a few times. Some old sharp lines, and they are the only. I only use those for fringes.
They look like they're a 5.5, 6-inch pair of scissors.
Little tiny 5. For me now, after you using big scissors, they feel like nail clippers, but for fringe work and that little tiny precision snippies, it's gold. Anyway, back to the reason why we're all here.
Let's have a look at the cut.
So now I've gotten right to that crown point. A lot of time people freak out at really deep texturizing. Don't. You know, no matter how hard we all think random hairdressing is, there is no randomness. There's always muscle memory. There's always pattern.
Is your section close to vertical here? If I come in and just have a look.
So, it is now?
Yeah. So you've worked all the way around one side till you're at centre back in the vertical.
Yes, absolutely. And then now it'll stay vertical for a little bit. This is also has a bit of a loose guide. So I can see that when I'm pulling the hair out here, where my shortness is and where my longness is. And still, even after, you know, the years of hairdressing that I put in, if I can't see my guide, don't cut it, just leave it alone. But experiment, you know, so much of this of these shapes and these techniques that you see me like just lay out really quickly through all of this. I start by either using my partner, which he's very graciously allowed me to do, or I'll just sneak a bit of it in the back of some regular clients. That's appropriate for the hair, and see how it comes back. You know, then in 6 weeks' time, it comes back and you go, that worked. That didn't do what I thought it would do. That didn't grow out appropriately. And then, you know, having that constant creative reflection on your work is super important. That's the only way you kind of grow and change.
I think that's a really important point, because to do that, you need to build up a level of trust with your clientele. And once you have that trust, they definitely are willing to let you experiment, for want of a better word, with their hair, knowing that you are going to make them look beautiful.
Yes.
So no matter what, it's going to look beautiful. Whether it's right for them at the time, whether it grows out for them.
Absolutely. And, you know, be honest. If I've been playing with a shape and I've got the right client in the chair, I'm like, right, here's the skinny. I've been busting this shape out. I'm at this point. I really want to do it on you. And sometimes I'll put a post up in my social media stories where I'm like, I really want to do this shape. Who's up for it? That's how Jane ended up here. So being able to have that rapport and also allowing yourself some playtime. You know, I think sometimes as hairdressers, we're so focused on, you know, the business side of it, which is important, I cannot deny. But, you know, being able to have fun and occasionally just do something for the hell of it. And go, you know, let me have fun. And being able to talk to your clients or say, you know, yes, we can do that. Or there is this other shape that I'll be playing with and kind of working on that I think would work with your hair, you know. And they love it. Who doesn't want to be someone's muse?
Look, can you just talk us through a little bit about your direction coming out from the scalp as you've moved around the head?
Yes. So with the front bit here, obviously I started pulling my section out at 45. That kept going all the way around. And then I hit that point where I then started to kind of pivot that small bit. And then now I'm almost going back the other way, because I want to end up at the front like that. So that way I end up with the same angle here. So this is new. I've only been doing this for about 6 months or so. And it's once you kind of understand the flow and the head shape and where the round of everyone's head is, the sacred geometry and the individual shape of someone's head will really guide you in how you should or shouldn't be working. Thanks for asking
That's good.
That question, but sometimes, you know, the way I work can look a bit random. I've heard people kind of go, whoa, you can't do that. And, you know, I love doing things I'm told I'm not allowed to do. That's a bit shallow.
Yeah, I think Luke has just said that that's so important to have, you know, that time outside of just your daily work hours to be able to create and play. It's your time, it's your opportunity to create something a little bit different and play with something. So yeah, it's important, whether it's, you know, doing a haircut, a colour technique, a photo shoot, whatever it might be, something that just gives you that bit of a creative outlet in what you love.
Absolutely, and you know what, it doesn't necessarily have to be hair. I feel like most hairdressers are artistic in a number of kind of disciplines. And for me, it's amazing how one will influence the other. And, you know, whether it be like cooking or, you know, like I do leather work and I work with other fabrics and stuff like that. And sometimes the color combination or the texture of two fabrics, you kind of go, ha, I see it. And then you spend the next kind of, you know, and then you kind of start to work with that. So I think that kind of interdisciplinary, is that a word? Thing is really important, and you've got to allow yourself time to play. Like I said, I do what you guys do. I don't just sit here and kind of, you know, fiddle with dolls' heads all day. I work on timing. The other thing about this particular sectioning pattern is, as we can now see that hairline shape starting to curve up and over, the haircut will naturally start to take on that shape. I think sometimes we forget that, you know, you don't have to always push and pull. Allowing that shape to kind of play out as a perimeter is really nice. And once again, because of the, you know, it's Jane's head, it's Jane's hairline, it's Jane's hair. So it will sit appropriate to all those things. So you don't have to worry about it being the right thing. You just got to watch your hands and your sectioning pattern, and that sacred geometry will just take care of itself. All right. Now I am going to, with these, so I've now hit the ear again, and that's the uncut front section. I'm actually just going to spin this around a little bit like that. And now I am going to work that forward.
Okay, so on the left-hand side, you stood at the front.
Yes.
And drew it towards you.
Yes.
On this side, you're taking the same angle, is that right?
Yes, but I'm working from behind. A, it's for filming purposes.
Yes.
Because being able to stand right in front of the hair means you wouldn't be able to see me, you just have to stare at my back. And also, it allows me to control my angle more. This, once again, my fingers are still the same shape.
Okay, I'm going to come in and get a close-up of how you're doing this.
It's tricky, and I've tried it both ways.
Excellent.
You guys are all very quiet out there in a digital world. Any questions?
Yeah, feel free to shoot questions through. We've got Dunk here that can relay them through, and we love questions.
Translate in 4 languages.
You know, I actually have a client who he's a linguist. Do you know what they call someone who speaks multiple languages? So there's a linguist who works more with the science of language, and then a polyglot is someone who speaks multiple languages. How cool is that? That was like my word of the week last week. Everything was polyglot. I was like, oh, maybe because I like cutting curly hair, straight hair, wavy hair. Maybe I'm like a polyglot hairdresser. All right, so you can now see that our shape is very similar, but because we've raised it off that hairline on one side and not the other, you can see that difference is there. So I'm going to jump back on the razor.
Can we just get a close-up of your razor just to see you've got it's a straight blade?
It's a straight blade with a guard.
Okay, thank you.
I spent years working with an open blade with Richard, who's behind the camera. You can hear talk here, and we used to exchange stories about how badly we cut ourselves, and it was always, you know, like cool battle scars, but the novelty wears off. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so I'm now going to stand probably right where you are.
Cool.
So I actually can't raise it backwards.
No, let's have a close-up look at this.
and scoop that around. You can kind of see here that part there comes from behind the ear, and we don't want to cut that bad boy. We want to make sure we leave all that. Just naturally what that will mean is it'll kind of leave all this jawline exposed, but it'll still leave us with a nice kind of soft edge. If I wanted to take that hard, I would keep my angle more 45 in line with my parallel with my part. But because I don't want that, I want to swing that around so it's 45, and that way it'll kind of leave us with this longer kind of corner, but still there's lots of exposed jaw there.
Beautiful. It's really taking shape. That makes a massive difference doing that razor work at the front.
Yeah, I could do it with scissor, but as I really wanted to show you guys a little bit of razoring, and you know, for me, who, you know, it's fun to chop and change. And you know, sometimes I'll do the whole haircut with razor, sometimes I'll do half a haircut with razor, sometimes I'll do just the fringe, then sometimes I won't. All right, so I just want my stool. All right. So before we get to the creme de la creme of the top section there in the fun fringy bit, I'm going to knock off. You can kind of see where this has started to disconnect. So you can see where the hair, you've got all this lovely moving texture, and it moves through, and then it goes in, and then it comes out. So I feel like I'm going to take all this bad boy off here. Once again, traditionally we would work out perimeter length first, and then we would go through and cut our interior. Whereas at the moment, I'm really enjoying doing all my interior work and letting the perimeter tell me. And you know, the other thing is this hair, this longest bit here, is always on the occipital bone. So once again, it's that sacred geometry, and it's just a no-brainer.
I might just get a profile if I can before you cut that,
Yeah.
Luke. Just
swing that way.
Yeah, that gives us an idea about what Luke was talking about there. You can really see the balance.
Generally speaking, it'll go kind of, you know, occipital bone, cheekbone. That's 9 times out of 10 always going to be the way a head is shaped. And it'll be completely different. Some people have really low occipital, some people have a high occipital. It just doesn't matter, but it will, generally speaking, always line up with cheekbones. Now, can you guys see that, Luke, can I just ask a question that's come through?
Are there any tips you'd recommend for people who are just starting out with slicing techniques and they're a bit nervous?
Yeah, have a go. Like, just, you know, I think one of the best bits of advice I ever got as a young hairdresser, and one of the ones I continually repeat, is you can always cut more off. You know, so like start small, but then don't be scared to really get in there. Because like literally it will grow back. It's been feeding my family for years, people. I promise it will grow back. And as long as you have that open communication that I was talking about earlier on with your clients, you know, take it as far as you want, but make sure you push. So you can see I'm almost kind of feeling this out.
One of our viewers has recommended here that standing behind, as you did there, Luke, she finds that a really great tip for doing that when she's working with it. So again, I think just pushing those scissors that way will give you that little bit of extra control. So
yeah,
a great way to work with it.
Good. Listen, it's so, like, you know, I think one of my favorite things, or if not my favorite thing about teaching is all the different hairdressers who I've interacted with, and every time I've done anything teaching wise, I've always walked away with something new. You know, it really is interactive for me. Okay, so just a bit of hair talk here. So you can see now these bits here is that corner in there. Yeah, so now we're right in this bit in here, and this is quite important because you can see how we've got all this front shape here, and it comes down, that bit goes. There's my corner, there's my jawline. Now, I've kind of gone along quite even. I'm now going to take this corner and round it up just a little bit, pull it forward. Bam. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So now I'm going to go the other way. Is that okay? I'm looking for little cues here to make sure you guys have a good view of the white wall behind me rather than just, stuff.
This is fun for me. I think this is the closest I've ever been to you while you've been cutting hair, because I'm able to get in nice and close and I've got such a good view. And I'm just hoping that we can, replicate that in the video.
I think also, like, when the world decides we're ready for a bit of normalness, like, I really look forward to, getting back on the road and taking this out to wherever I have to go. I love it. Give me regional Australia, give me the country, give me the coast. If you book it, I will come. All right, so now I'm going to swing that right back around.
Luke, can we just ask a question just before you move on to the next
Yes.
section? It just came through. Was where is your guide when you're working through your more horizontal diagonal sections through the back? How do you keep your guide through there?
So not my perimeter, but how do I work through that?
Yep.
It's all from the front.
Yep.
So it literally, that first section, when it's long, not when I've raised it off, and the rest of it's just tracing. And, so if you can't see a solid line behind your next section, don't cut it. No guide, no cut. It really is the key. So everything just comes around like that. I could actually stand still and just rotate Jane all the way around. And that is literally how it goes. Yeah? All the way around. And that's also the reason why I've been kind of really getting into the idea of, like, working my way around the head, one side to the other, rather than going, what I used to go front, middle, or back, front, and then repeat the side around, but like trying to keep that flow with this shape, particularly when I'm working with such deep texturizing, I just find keeps my my mojo. All right, so now is the fun stuff. Sorry. I can talk about clients with Jane here. She is also a maker and understands that sometimes you just got to do things a bit weird. Don't be scared to kind of flop that hair over someone's face to see how it's going to sit. You also saw that I sectioned that whole bit back as one, rather than throwing a center part in. But then, as this hair naturally moves towards drying, if I had that center part in and then tried to cut a solid fringe, it'd just want to part those disulfide bonds. Yes, would have been broken and would have started to set that line in there, which I do not want. All right, so how was this doing best? Okay, let's go like this. You can say that. So now I'm going to be working out of the crown towards the front. Hope you can hear those black cockatoos. Beautiful. Every time I see them when I'm out in the bush, I always ask them kindly for a feather, and so far they have not given me one. Okay, so with this conversation, I'm going to come out of that. Now I know that because of that section at the front, my guide section, I should only have a tiny little bit here to cut. Yeah? Now, this is probably where it gets a little bit more tech. We're going to go straight up. Does that angle work?
Yeah, that's good. So you've really followed a parallel part to your original sectioning pattern.
Yeah.
Simple.
2 lines. Why shouldn't it be simple?
Yep.
Anyone who's done courses with me will always, keep it simple, man. So now I'm going to be doing, really squishing that hair together. And then I'm going to be going in a finger and scooping that bad boy right out.
So you're almost pivoting your scissors off your finger.
Yes.
To create the...
And you see I've literally got those little tiny bits left there.
Yeah.
And you just take those bad boys off. I'm going to go again. So this is where that pivoting, what that does, haircut's simple, the technique's complicated. The reason why I pivot, when I go in and pivot, that's the strongest bit of the curve. It's quite a steep curve. Whereas when I'm dragging, when I'm scooping out, it's quite a long, gentle curve. Whereas when I'm scooping and pivoting, it's quite a steep curve. Yeah?
Yep.
That doesn't make sense. Ask me again and I'll try to think of a different way to say it.
Well, it makes sense to me. We'll see. If it doesn't, please make a comment.
The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with that natural forward, the head shape. So rather than just going all straight up and cutting it square, we're just going to give us a very heavy front. We're going to continue that softness down, taking into account that there's that short bit there. Can we all see that bit there?
So is that your danger area? No shorter than that?
No, man. Take it off. Take that bad boy off.
Take it off.
This is where it becomes a little bit dangerous, because then what we're actually doing is, you can see how we're making, because for sake of geometry, we're actually making a fringe.
Yes.
And because we're following the head of that shape, this is working for us because we went up over the round, so we're already round.
Before we move on to the next section, just a question from Naomi. Will this work wherever they part their hair?
Hell yes. So I never cut with a part, ever. None of my haircuts have a part. If it's a bob, I will cut with the center part, but unless someone has like, you know, a tattoo that says part here, or a freckle that they actually part their hair on every single day, I will not cut with a part. Yeah. And because effectively what we're cutting through this top bit is a round layer, it'll always fall nice and even. Alright? So now I'm just going to keep working down there. And once again, I'm kind of pivoting out of that center bit all the way across. So that line, remember that first V we had? It's going to go boom, 3 or 4 sections tops, those little tiny boys, and then it's going to pivot out of that and then end up there. And then we're pretty much done. How are we doing with time, guys?
Good. Another 15 minutes.
Awesome. So thing about doing this pivoting technique is you do end up with sometimes these little random bits. I have known to get through all the way through a haircut and I need to find like a, you know, I say, oh, it's my signature. That's how you know Luke cut your hair. Which then the client says, no, thank you. So once again, there's all that short. Okay. If I wasn't cutting off so much hair, there'd be a little bit more control to have here, but because we are cutting off so much of that hair, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's just as much fun. And you can see that that's really doing the thing. Like I said, I've cut Jane's hair off to a pixie a number of times, so I'm very aware of exactly how this hair works. I might actually go like that now, and that way it'll be against me. As much as I love showing you all my space. I spent 3 days getting this space ready. Once again, it's a mobile guide, so everything comes to a new guide and goes straight up from it. Following that natural shape of the head. There's my guideline. Now this is going to be a little bit long, but I'm going to go back through and I'm going to show you another little thing that I do with this haircut. So that should almost be. You can see now, once I cut this last bit, there'll just be a few little wispies. But, you know, I am working from the same side. And that's just for continuity. I feel like when you're holding your fingers one way, it's very straight. But then if you start to cut the other side like that, you naturally have the curve to your finger and it becomes much more difficult to kind of body shape. I picked that up from watching someone else's education and I tried it out, test the theory, and it held water for me. So now it's something that I do.
Just a few thoughts from people there for you, Luke, and sharing. Naomi says, you sound like my boss. She's always telling me to get rid of my parts. Too textbook. And Jesse Harris says, you know, love this more freestyle work.
Great. You know what? I think I spent about 3 or 4 years in my career after I finished my apprenticeship documenting every haircut I did. Drawing it, writing notes, being so into the idea of it being so technically perfect. And then I realised that I was actually stifling a certain part of myself that wouldn't allow me to kind of see it as an individual head, because everything just had to be strong shape. And I club cut everything, no texturizing for years. And now I just like, you know, it's about fun and individuality. And even though I can reproduce this shape like, you know, over and over again today, if you give me 5 different heads of hair, there'll be 5 different kind of end results and textures. But it is important. I think sometimes what apprentices miss these days is, you know, if you don't know your classics, you got nothing to rebel against. If you don't know how to cut a precision round layer and a bob and a fringe and an increased layer and a square layer, how do you know how to not do it? You know, you really need to kind of know both. Right, so there's all that short little corner on the other side there. And this does look kind of freehandy, but truth be told, there's still a lot of structure in there. And for me, doing this without a mirror in front of me is harder than I thought it would be, to be honest. So you can see now that we've got all this beautiful shape to that top part, and how it's really rounded. There's no corner, and how we've got all this beautiful exposed jaw, and how it's going to sit in really quite neatly when I'm done and dusted, all around that cheekbone, all into that cheekbone there. Alright, so I'm going
I love it, Luke. Yeah.
Alright. So the story before about having someone show me how they did it online, this is what he showed me with the fringe bit and that little front corner.
Right. I've been looking forward to this.
Seriously, my partner, for about 3 months after I butchered her hair trying to master it myself without knowing, every morning would remind me how terrible I cut her fringe until it grew back. And then when I finally mastered it, she was almost upset that it wasn't on her. Alright, so centre part, this is where I'm going straight down the middle. It's not very deep or accurate, it doesn't have to be, because this is so short. I can guarantee that anything past the ear won't make it all the way forward anyway, yeah? And then what we're going to do is, you can work either side first, it does not matter. Little triangle, so that makes like a 45-degree angle. Can we see that?
That's good, yeah.
Great. Now,
Beautiful.
much like my forward graduation, we'll call it, rather than that traditional pulled all the way around, I've gone out to get all that kind of pushback motion. I'm going to do the same with the front, where rather than traditionally pulling like fringe all the way down, really hard, cut on skin, I'm going to pull it out
You're
at an
elevating
angle.
and coming across the centre guide.
Yep. And then you'll see that my fingers are 45 to that line.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me come in and just give a bit of a closer view of that. That is cool, okay?
And then the important part of this technique is working from longer up into shorter. Yeah? And that way I know that when I comb that out, because short versus long, it's going to want to go out that way.
Oh, wow. Love it. Love it.
Yeah?
That's instant, Luke. Thank you.
Alright, so
I've been waiting to see that. Excellent,
It's so
man.
much fun. Once I worked it
Yeah.
out, everyone copped it for about a month. I had to be careful.
Okay, let's watch this one again, nice and close.
So now we're going to have to go to cut the reverse. So now I'm going to have to reposition my hand.
So from
And then just have a look in there. And because, once again, we've angled our hands out with that section, there's some nice little short bits in there, but then you're still left with this really beautiful soft perimeter.
Yeah.
You know? It's that true shaggy bangs, rather than going for that traditional kind of heavy, more 60s style. This is far more like a loose-ish kind of thing. So my part's still
It is
there.
right on, Luke. I love that technique. That is
So-
right on.
Now I'm going to go from there out to recession point.
Okay, still following same angle.
So hand nice and flat. Don't go like that. We want to keep it flat.
Yes.
And then do the same again. So you didn't have to dry this haircut. I love it.
Yeah, it's looking good already, isn't it?
I can see Jane trying to watch. Yeah, so it gets a really strong sweep, and once again it sweeps down to those cheekbones.
That texture through the centre
It's beautiful.
it's
But
magnificent.
it's
Yeah,
not
love
just that. You can also get like a nice big heavy sweep out of it. Jane's got some pretty wild cowlicks. You can go either way with it. It's not a technique that you have to, that haircut that has to be worn one way or the other. Yeah? So I'm just going to apply a little bit more zero heat. Not much. Oh, not much for me anyway. I know some hairdressers use a hell of a lot more of it than I do. So now that I've already got that nice flat root, I'm now just going to like really squeeze, or what's the word? Rummage the product through the end of the hair.
The zero heat that Luke has used today is the thick hair version. There's
Yes.
2 zero heats. There's a fine to medium, but we're using the thick hair on Jane today.
Don't mix it up. I've done it, and the heavy one on fine hair is too heavy. That's like, I don't believe a lot of what's written on packaging, but that particular kind of guideline is something that for me is really important. Thick curl, particularly a European curl, which Jane has not got, is very much about that kind of thick, but this is like some coarse, you've got that grey hair content in here, and it really wants that moisture. And you can see that I haven't blow dried it, this is all live. And you can see that kind of shape coming right on out.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to hit it a little bit just for effect.
So you're using a diffuser here. Are you doing this just for us?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So normally, sometimes I'll just blast dry it and just let it walk out, but being able to try to accentuate a bit more of that texture. Diffuser, high heat, low blow. Yeah. And then we're just going to scrunch it with our hands and just fiddle with it. Don't be too specific, but just,
So on your average client, you would let them go out with the hair slightly damp?
Hell yes. If it's
Yeah.
curly,
Yeah.
for sure. If it was straight, I would pretty much just blast dry it with my fingers. And that would be more than enough. I don't see, I know that Jane is not going to go home, wash her hair and spend an hour and a half blow drying and styling. So for me, as part of the consultation, which will very much guide not only the length and shape, but also technique and take-home product recommendations, is all about what they will or won't do.
Just a question from Jesse.
Yeah.
Is
Jesse.
Jane's hair very dry when you put the second amount of zero heat in?
Yeah, like 80% dry. 80% dry. And as much as it says it's for thick, coarse hair, it is still a weightless product. If you're using the right one on the right head of hair, it is a weightless, and it absorbs in and just gives you a little bit of control. No hold. I do not like crunchy, static hair. This kind of static hair thing at the moment really kills me. I'm a big fan of it being all kind of, I want to touch it. I want to see it move. I want to follow it around and see how it moves out on the street itself.
I love the fact that you applied the zero heat in the hair before you even started cutting, because I use it a lot, but I end up really putting it in probably at this stage that you've just done now, but the hair ends up being more wet, so I have to spend more time to sort of let it fluff around with my fingers to slightly dry.
Yeah. Which is great, and I mean, like, in an ideal world, that wouldn't be a problem, but then I could put more in, stick the client under my, I forgot what it's called, my heat machine that I use to process colour.
Yeah, the Rollerball.
I call it the Dyson Soul Harvester, but anyway, it's not actually what it is. And you can actually put that heat on there and just leave it to naturally absorb itself in. But, you know, this is a real world scenario. This isn't a photo shoot. This isn't me kind of, you know, parading myself. This is me showing you what I do on a daily basis. One last little thing that I will show that is kind of cool. That I'll do more of in some of my other work that you guys will hopefully jump online for. You can see here with Jane's hair, we've got quite a heavy curving here, which is cool, and I dig, but I feel like in another couple of weeks that might be a little bit too heavy. So what I'm going to do is let the hair show me where it wants to go and how it wants to fall. Now my hands are a bit slippery.
It's razor time.
It is.
Razor
so
time.
we're going to use a razor. I'm going to work on an angle that faces the face. Fine end of tooth comb. That bad boy's all going to come up. And then I'm going to up razor. So it's going to go in. Yeah? Because normally it's hard to get such deep razoring without making a real mess.
I like
that. Yeah, it's heaps of fun.
So that's where a guard on your straight blade would be essential.
Yes, so as I pull this section up, you can see that there's those shorter bits and then there's that longer top.
So let me just focus on those shorter bits again. There they are, they're falling out from near your knuckles.
Done. So this is like the most personalising that I'll be doing. And that's it then. We are good to go, people.
Luke, you mentioned you've got some other classes coming up. Can you just give the guys in line a little bit of a brief on what to expect from the other cutting courses you'll be taking?
Hell yes. So I'm doing one called Slept In, Lived In, and I'm Wearing It Anyway, which once again is an ultra low style, long haircut. There's no straight lines in any of it. It's going to all be, once again, it's going to be some of that deep kind of scooping and shaping through texture. How about I leave you to think about that? So rather than cutting a shape, I'm going to cut in a texture that will allow the hair to produce its own natural shape. The other one, just because it's nice to have some balance for me, I'm doing like what I've called my neo-gamine. A gamine haircut is basically like a genderless, boyish, short haircut. It's going to have some real sweet little micro undercutting, but that's going to be a little bit more precision based with some really hard edges to it. But it's going to be good. So there you go. Jane's been very gracious. We are done. Jump up and we'll take your cape off. You'd be amazed at the hand gestures going on behind the kids. They're behind the things now. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Wonderful. Great. Step over here in the viewing spot where the light is good.
It feels fantastic.
It looks fantastic.
So just give us a bit of a spin. There you go. So there was no styling in that. It styles itself. That's the point. You know, that's the point. It's all about just it's fun and good and easy.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Jane. Hang on, dust you off.
So guys, I'd like to say thanks so much to Luke and our model Jane here today. Looks awesome, Jane. Hope you're loving it. And guys, from there tomorrow, we've also got the Joyco Joyride, which is going through reconstructive retail, our K-Pack products. We'll be taking you through there, so a little bit of PK. But awesome cut, awesome teaching and explanation to run through today, Luke. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you loved it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Get on board. The education's what it's all about. Thank you.